You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is, if getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, Pop-Up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu and drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you, see you, see you, see you.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Ain't no stop for me. Chateau Timberlake.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I am missing my co-host, Diane Byer, and she is probably in 19 feet of snow in New Hampshire. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but we certainly have a little bit of flooding going on the Cape, and I'm so glad that Captain Jim Staples could make his way to us because he's been in Alaska and Maryland.
Yep.
How's that? Am I back? Okay. Well, I don't know why that keeps doing that. I keep trying to tell my kids to get off the devices. Captain Jim, I don't know what you guys missed, but we're so happy to have you with us. We understand you recently were in Alaska, and I forget where you were before Alaska.
No, I was up in Ketchikan, and actually I was in Boston for about 2 weeks. Which is,
that's not unusual.
Yeah, it's a long spell for me.
I saw you on Jesse Waters, and what was the other show that I saw you? Lamar.
I was on with Cavuto, and I was on the noontime shows with Fox. With
the one that you texted me. You're gonna make me look for it now, aren't you?
Yeah, that might have been the Harris Faulkner.
Yes.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, I mean, great questions, great video that they had, and I want to tell you, when we couldn't get a hold of you last week, I did the best I could to represent. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to, but I'll do a recap. We didn't really know what happened then, but what we did cover was there was a bridge strike there in Baltimore about 40 years ago, and pardon me if I mispronounce the name. It's NAGUYA was the name of the ship, and there was a bridge strike. And at that point, it was 1/3 of the length of the dolly in a fraction of the weight. And I want to say that when the dolly hit this bridge, it can potentially carry, I think it's 10,000 20-foot containers. And it only had half of that amount on it to do that amount of damage. So Diane and I hope she's listening because you're going to have to settle this little teeny bet for us. I say, people are blaming it on the bridge. Why wasn't the bridge fortified? Why didn't we have this? Why didn't we have that? And my contention is, where were the regulations? Where were these commissioners, these politically appointed commissioners, of which only 5 have no maritime experience whatsoever? When they start to bring these big ships through and they quadruple in size, Captain Jim, isn't there a thought of, hey, this ship is 3 times as big as the one that struck our bridge 40 years ago. Ought we not mitigate some risk here and either bring in tugs or perhaps not make these ships that big, or should they have been fortifying the bridges? What's your thought on that?
That's a good question, and usually it always comes down to money. So the cost of putting on a couple extra tugboats to see the ship safely through the bridge would cost a lot more money to the ship owner, and the ship owners don't want to pay that kind of money. So usually after a disaster is usually when new regulations come up, as we saw with the Exxon Valdez in Alaska. For many years I used to run up there and run all the way to the dock and out with no tugboat escorts at all, just being on the ship. With us just maneuvering the ship by ourselves. Not until Hazelwood ran aground on the Exxon Valdez did they started making and mandating that vessels had to have escort tugboats with them, especially tankers. So all the tankers that go in and out of the harbors in the United States have escort tugboats with them. In case they lose power or steerage, they can hook up to the tug, and the tug can keep them away from dangerous areas. So we're probably going to see that happen now with container ships of this size. when they go through bridges and narrow channels and in extremely treacherous waterways that have narrow passages. And so we'll see probably escort tugs for these guys too. So
where does risk mitigation come into where is the risk mitigation factor of, why are we waiting? I'm scared to death right now to fly on a plane. if the airline industry, if their safety requirements are at all indicative of what the safety requirements are to come in and out of the Baltimore Port Authority, which is the largest on the East Coast that supplies farming machines, vehicles, any over-the-road vehicles. I think it's $600 million worth of coffee. I went and stocked up on coffee. I could care less about toilet paper, but I need to have coffee.
Right.
Where's our risk mitigation for this? And where does the responsibility lie? And why does the administration immediately say, we'll be paying for this? And why isn't Maersk or Singapore, who leased this ship, what's the ramifications there, and what's the culpability for the ship itself? Is this considered a natural disaster? It doesn't seem so.
No, this is not a natural disaster. This is definitely a man-made disaster. And with the risk mitigation, they're always done when, we use a simulation to run the ships in and out, but simulation's great because you never walk away. You can always walk away from everything that happens in a simulator. But, the chances and the odds of that happening in that particular spot at that particular time, probably 1,000,000 to 1. But it did happen. It's the same thing with the door coming off a Boeing 737, Max. It's happened once, but when it does happen, it can be catastrophic. So as we saw in Baltimore, that was a catastrophic event. And, all the stars were lined up for everything to happen to make that happen perfectly. Because we've had ship collisions before in the port of Oakland. One of the Costco Poussin hit the bridge, leaving in dense fog. Again, pilot error. The pilot made a mistake on that one. He never should have gone in that dense fog. And there were some other outcomes from that, but he made an error. He was able to recover the ship, but still put a slice in the ship and put the oil into the water. So there was some damage to the bridge, but the bridge didn't come down. Here, the pilot struck the bridge head on, probably in the worst place you could ever impact the bridge because you have all that momentum and force.
What would you say the pounds per square inch were hitting that column? Any guesstimation there?
92,000 gross tons, so that's a lot of weight. I couldn't figure that would take a physicist to figure that out, but that's a little above my pay grade.
I'm just curious about the force that it has to hit.
Oh yeah, the momentum, the force.
Our listeners can have some, reality to compare it to.
It did have a lot to do with the construction of that type of a bridge too, not being a suspension type bridge. So I guess that had a lot to do with it too. I was listening to one of the experts on that, but it does. You get back to the risk mitigation, but it all comes back to the money. If they had hung on to a tugboat, then that probably would have helped quite a bit, and that bridge would still be standing. But the problem still exists. There's a multiple amount of problems with what we have happening here, and it can come down to the crew size, crew fatigue. What were they doing to the engines? Were they working on the engines? All that kind of.
What was that big puff of smoke? It was. We saw the lights go on and off. Actually, let me just back up a little bit. So, in doing my research, like I always do for the shows, I read that while docked at the port, and you can verify this or not, but there had been some electrical problems with the ship, and they were still allowed to leave. And they also had, prior to that, at the port where they were prior, they had some propulsion issues. So where is the culpability for either Maersk or Singapore, who was leasing the ship? Why aren't those safety violations we see actually with Noble's Drilling right back in, I forget what year it was, but Captain Jeff Hagopian, he's, I believe, one of your classmates, and he was a whistleblower. He said, there's a safety violation here. They fired him 3 days later. So are people bullied or retaliated against for reporting? A propulsion issue is a problem. An electrical issue is a problem, especially when you know that you're going through that port and you're going near that bridge. So who's culpable for this? Why is it on the American taxpayers to foot the bill for this disaster?
Well, the bullying and stuff with foreign companies could happen. I mean, it's very easily. All they have to do is remove the captain and replace the captain if he doesn't really go by the mandate of what the company wants him to do. But legally, if he's got problems on board that ship, he is supposed to report that to the port state control, especially if there are issues that have to do with the seaworthiness of the vessel. He's supposed to report that. So he should have reported that to the United States Coast Guard. And if there were electrical problems with that vessel, and they had reported it to the Coast Guard, then the Coast Guard would come down and sign off on it, saying that the vessel was good to go, or the ABS or whatever agency they were using for what we call class. So somebody has to sign off on the problems if there is a problem, if it is reported. Now, if there was a problem with the vessel that could hamper the seaworthy of that ship and the maneuverability of it, and they never reported it, that's a criminal act. So that can be a major, major problem to the company. And again, like you say, it could be a possibility because they're afraid to report it, and they're afraid of the consequences of what could happen to them by being removed from the ship for reporting things. Does it happen?
So who would bring that suit? Who would bring that suit? I mean, that would definitely be a maritime suit.
The United States Coast Guard would definitely bring that. That would come up. And then Department of Justice would get involved.
Because as we saw with the Nobles disaster, after Captain Jeff Hagopian reported that, he was summarily fired, and Noble ended up pleading guilty to 8 felonies.
Right.
Some of them were safety. I believe there was some environmental spillage of, I don't know if it was hydraulic or oil, something environmentally damaging. And then Mass Maritime accepted $1 million donation from Noble's Drilling. And to this day, Mass Maritime still sends its graduates to work for Noble's Drilling, who pled guilty to 8 felonies to include safety violations and environmental violations. So how do we wrap our arms around the maritime industry's issues with failure to report? To me, it's tantamount to an airline pilot, blowing a 3-0, flying to Atlanta. I mean, how do we remedy this?
Problem with the door.
Like, how do we remedy this? Like, who is going to? The commissioner, her name was Karen Thea Barber, and she is a wonderful diversity, equity, and inclusion motivational speaker. And somehow the governor, Wes Moore of Baltimore, appointed her to the Port Authority, and her main goal was to make the port more profitable. How is that working out for Karen Thea?
Not too well right now. We've lost a lot of money. The Port of Baltimore is losing a lot of money. So
paint a picture.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Like.
People should be put in job positions because of their quality of work and their professionalism. And whether that's happening or not in Baltimore, I don't know. But obviously, that's going to be looked into now because we have a loss of life. So usually what brings major changes in compliance and regulation is loss of life. And here we definitely have loss of life. So that's going to be heavily looked at. And I would assume criminal complaints are going to come forward, whether to the ship owner, to the master, to the chief engineer. It could be any one of them, depending on what the situation is and what the NTSB finds and the Coast Guard finds wrong with the vessel. So that's That's probably the way the direction of it's going to go. So there's going to be a lot of time spent looking at past records of maintenance, procurement. Does the crew get the parts sent that they need? So if they know they've got an engine overhaul coming up and they order the parts, does the company send them? Does the company send quality parts made by OEMs, the actual manufacturer, or do they get knockoffs from China that can't stand up to the rigorous routine of constantly running in a ship, and the parts break down at an earlier time? So that could be what happened on this vessel. They had made a repair or an overhaul on something, and they used parts that really weren't quality parts that go into the manufacturer's engine. I think it was a Korean-built ship, so they're probably not using parts from Hyundai, but they're probably getting parts from China.
And I believe that was an issue when the helicopter crashed, the state police helicopter crashed, is that they didn't have regular maintenance. But I want to paint a picture for our listeners, and if you can help me out with this.
Sure.
Of course, I'm a retired state trooper, as is your brother, and we've done details. I refuse to do details on the bridge. I do not want any part of being on the Sagamore, the Bourne Bridge, or the Braga Bridge. I don't like the way it sways. I don't like how it moves up and down. I would gladly jump out of a plane with a parachute, but I have no interest in standing on the bridge. So my immediate thought was, as I was watching this unfold and listening to the transmissions, the safety transmissions, they were very calm. And I think I would have been like, get everybody off that bridge now. I mean, even my heart was pounding so hard because the gentlemen or women, whoever they were, that were doing work on the bridge, I'm sure they're not looking for a ship coming in through the port that might hit the bridge that's going to knock it over and they're going to be into the ocean. What was the time frame, if you know, or if you can estimate, from the point where the ship had no propulsion until they were able to close that bridge? And who closed that bridge? Was it the state police? Was it the Baltimore? Was it the local police? Because I'll tell you, I couldn't have gotten there fast enough once I heard that radio transmission to shut that bridge down. And we still lost 6 people. We still lost 6 bridge repair crewmen, which to me was absolutely devastating. I can't imagine trying to get there at 100 million miles an hour to shut that bridge down, because that every time I go over the Sagamore Bridge, the Bourne Bridge, or any bridge, I think if this collapsed into the ocean, I think that would be the most heinous way to possibly die. Falling off a bridge in your car into the water.
Yeah, it would be. You probably wouldn't have any idea what was going on for the first couple of seconds.
What's the time frame from the time that they know they didn't have any propulsion to the time they struck to the time they closed the bridge down? Have you had a chance to speak to that?
No, I haven't looked at it, but I know it was only minutes. It
looked like minutes.
Yeah, he didn't have a lot of time, and the pilot actually did an excellent job. He did everything he's supposed to do that we train in shipboard in emergency ship handling that we do on simulation. This is one of the things we train for, and letting the port anchor go and getting the mayday call out and whoever else he was calling and trying to get the engines to go astern. He did everything correct. Unfortunately, he didn't have the propulsion system, and he had no control of the vessel, so that was the big thing. But
what does the port look like now? If you can tell us, is there still debris there? Do we have a shipping lane open? And how do they go about mitigating the debris? Because now we want to put other ships through there, and now we have debris, and everybody knows, a lobster trap can cause havoc
right
to your twin engine. But now you're talking about ships that are 974 feet long. So how do we go about mitigating that? How do they go about the cleanup and get that debris out of the way?
Well, they brought in a couple salvage companies, Resolve being one of them, which is one of the bigger ones. John, another one, and I think there's 3 salvage companies working on it right now. So they brought a big gantry in. They got divers in the water. They're doing all sorts of cutting, But the main problem is that with the weight of the steel and everything, when it went into the river, it actually went into the bottom. The bottom is like mud, and so it actually sank into the mud. So I mean, you've walked through mud before, you know what happens when you get stuck in mud, and that's exactly what's happened with all this steel. So now they've got all this mud down there, and they got to get through the mud to get to the steel to do the cutting, and that's right in the main channel. So that's going to be very, very difficult to do, especially with the weather conditions they have right now. Working in the dock, it's completely dark down there with the disruption of the bottom and everything. So it's very treacherous, very dangerous, and it's got to be precisionally done so they don't have any other collapses falling on the men while they're down there working. So there's quite a bit of debris in the way. They've opened up 2 small channels for shallower draft vessels, not big ships or anything, but small stuff, with not a lot of draft. So they have done that, but the main part of the channel, the deep part of the channel, is where they're having all the problem because the weight of the steel and everything just sank. It pancaked down and pancaked into the mud. So that's going to be a while before they can get that out. But that's their first. The first consideration they have is that it doesn't collapse anymore on anybody down there, and I believe they still have a couple bodies down there to recover. So they're trying to be respectful of that and everything, and clear all the debris. There's still debris laying across the ship.
Those poor guys. I cannot imagine. I don't think anybody. We all have. Everybody who's in a dangerous job, as you know, you don't go to work every day thinking, hey, I could get killed. I mean, you try not to have an argument with your significant other before you leave, but sometimes, whatever. And so many lives were touched. And the only thing that the governor, Wes Moore, could say was, we're Baltimore strong. And when the state called, we answered, no, that's what you're supposed to do. You are supposed to go out and help people when the bridge is crushed and your workers are in the water. So he kind of makes it out to seem like, like they did a favor. No, you were obligated. And you were obligated also, I believe, and maybe you disagree, maybe you don't, government's first responsibility is to make sure that its citizens are safe.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
And we are appointing people, these political appointments. I watched a Cape Cod Community College forum the other day, and I was absolutely disgusted. One of the state reps here said, when I fart, it smells just like when you fart. And I thought, you have got to be kidding me. This is the kind of person that's appointed or voted into a political office, which scared the daylights out of me. And now I think about the 6 commissioners. I mean, in a perfect world, wouldn't those commissioners be doing risk mitigation and, how do we safely bring the largest port that distributes to the East Coast? I understand we want to be profitable, but don't we also want to be safe at the same time? And how is that balanced in the maritime industry? It doesn't seem like it is.
Well, that's a good question. And, when you're looking at safety, you're going to be looking at money. So it costs money to be safe. And then spending money on safety cuts into profitability, even though the first thing they'll say is safety first, right? That's what you see in a ship always. In big letters, safety first. But sometimes they push that safety aside just to make the schedule, just the schedule of the vessel. Not all companies, but a lot of companies push their captains to make the schedule, and by doing that, they violate rest period rules, fatigue sets in, and we start seeing a problem. That's why these ships are short-handed. They need more people on them, number one. They should have larger crews than what they have on them. You got these big mammoth ships with only 20 people, 23 people running them. The thing is, they run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. These things do not stop. And these guys could be on the ships for 13, 14 months without getting off. Not even able to get to a Walmart, just staying on that ship 24 hours a day, not even getting off. Especially after COVID, they weren't allowed off of any of the ships in any of the ports. And a lot of ports have mandated that still, that they don't allow the crews off. So these guys are tired. And if they had more people, they wouldn't be as tired because they could get more rest. But that's a problem that costs more money for the companies. They got to spend more money for that. And that's what it comes down to, and for someone who makes statements like that one down the Cape, well, that's just being classless, not having any class. Well,
he's a boxer, so he's been punched in the face like a bazillion times. So I don't even think he knows what he's saying. But it just, when we don't, as citizens and as people, we are not paying attention to what's going on around us. Like, if you would paint a picture for us about that pilot from the time he hits the bridge until the collapse. Take us through what happens to that pilot. I'm sure he's drug tested, alcohol tested, but could you give our listeners a little bit of insight into the procedural, is there polygraphs? Do they bring him into a room? Does FEMA show up? Does CIA? Does the FBI? Do we initially think it's a terrorist attack? And just take us through that initial, maybe that 24 hours or 48 hours of investigation, if you are able to indulge us.
Okay, so how it starts is you have a pilot bring the ship in. Docking master gets on when she gets near the dock, and the docking master will do all the docking stuff. He'll work closely with the tugboats and get the vessel alongside till lines are out. But the pilot brings it all the way up the Chesapeake and into the harbor. So the ship will sit there and work the cargo, and then it's time to go. So when it's time to go, the docking master will get on, and he usually comes with 2 tugboats, and he'll get his tugboats made up fast. One forward, probably one aft, depending on where he puts the tugs, depending on the weather conditions and all that. The pilot also gets on at the same time, and they have what they call a master pilot exchange. And what that is the captain will exchange information with the pilot, and the pilot will exchange information with the captain as to the way they're going to go out, how the tugboats will be used, when the tugs will be let go, and what he wants to do with certain situations with the ship. So they should have a very good understanding of what's been happening. So the captain should be telling the pilot everything there is to know about the vessel that could hamper the voyage. It's going to tell them if they had any electrical work done or any mechanical work done, if the ship is in good working order, if the steering is having problems. He should tell him all of these type of problems if they are having them, and then so the pilot can make a decision right then and there if they need another tugboat or if the ship just isn't safe to sail, and they'll come back when it is.
Because I just want to reiterate one point, Captain. Sorry, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Yep.
But you mentioned it earlier, and I don't want our listeners to miss it, but the captain that actually brings the ship through the port is from Baltimore.
Correct.
So he's the one who hit the bridge, correct?
I won't say he hit the bridge. It's the ship that hit the bridge.
Well, he was piloting the ship, so
he was piloting the ship, but the captain.
What happens to the people that are being investigated from the time they recover the ship? I mean, is it alcohol testing? Is it drug testing? Is it psychological testing? I mean, he must be devastated.
It's all of that. They'll be drug tested, alcohol tested, and then they'll sit down and give depositions to the United States Coast Guard, NTSB. There'll be lawyers involved. They'll all be talking, and the pilot will tell exactly what happened. And the investigators will go back and look at all the equipment, the VDR, the voice data recorder. So there'll be a lot of that going on. And that's what's going on now. The whole crew will be deposition too. They'll all be sat down with investigators and asked questions. The basic stuff. Where were you? What's your job? What's your performance? Tell me what happened. All that kind of stuff with every one of them. The depositions will be made up. And that'll all be part of the investigation. And
who's conducting that investigation?
That'll be the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, and the United States Coast Guard. And probably along with some of the Singaporean Port State Control will probably come too. So they'll all be part of the investigation. They'll come up and do it.
And are you aware if any of the crew members, because I know that you do these type of investigations yourself, but if you can say, do we have any non-English speaking people on board where now we have to get translators, and are these investigations, are they recorded with each person? Because we want to place everybody. Does anybody have, the EPIRBs when your boat goes underwater, the EPIRB goes off? Is there any personal GPS on anybody's person to say where they were at a particular time?
No, there's nothing like that. But they'll know where people were. There's probably somebody up on the bow, the bosun, and an officer might have been on the bow. There's a helmsman on the wheel. They know where the engineers are in the engine room. And then there'll be people off getting rest. So they'll have a good idea where everybody was. But there's no type of, body cameras or any type of personal identifier that would say where you were exactly on the vessel.
How soon before they're interrogated, as you say, truckers have sleep logs. I don't know if pilots have sleep logs. They have to confirm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they sure do. We all have logs.
And do they have union members? Do they have attorneys? I mean, do they have a psychologist on board? Because I imagine whoever was piloting the ship and the crew that's there, those 6 deaths and the devastation are also weighing on them. What's the future look like for them? Like, will they ever be in the maritime industry again?
Well, that's hard to say because that's going to have to go back to what the investigation reveals, right? But as far as, from what I've seen and heard from the pilot's action, he did everything possibly he could do.
And what would that be? What could he have done? What did he actually do?
He made the mayday call. He let the anchors go. He tried to get an stern bell out of it. There's not a lot more you can do. That's kind of like you ripping down the highway in your cruiser at 80 miles an hour and you step on the brakes and all of a sudden they don't work and the engine shuts off. There's not a real lot you can do except for maybe try to put your foot out the door and slow the vehicle down.
Fred Flintstone.
I mean, just imagine yourself going down the highway at a high rate of speed and you lose everything. It's the same thing with the ship. He's got nothing to stop him. He doesn't have brakes. He relies on that engine and that propeller to go astern to slow him down or the rudder to move him. And if he doesn't have that, he's got nothing in favor that he can use to take the momentum off of that ship, except for those anchors. And
what's funny you say about the anchors? Diane and I run a Facebook page called Double D Uncensored, and it's not that Double D. It's Diane and Daryl. And although we've had some very strange requests, and we're like, it's not that kind of page. It's Double D Uncensored. And, I was joking and I said, why not throw an anchor? And I did mean it as a joke. And Emily Stevens is one of our, she writes her own blog, but she's one of our followers. And she said, I saw a handsome older gentleman on Jesse Waters. I can't recall his name, but he was a ship captain and he was talking about this disaster. And I said, that's my friend. To a handsome older gentleman. So older to you. But she said, and she used that same example that you used, and she, I felt like she was, people can mock me all they want. I love sarcasm, and I have thick skin. But she said, you can't throw an anchor. But now you say that they did throw an anchor. So Emily, they did throw an anchor.
Yeah, they let it go. They don't throw it because it's so big.
Well, us.
But they let it go. We call let it go. So you let the anchor go, but the problem is it's all mud, so the anchor didn't catch, or what we call fetch up, real good for him to make any difference. And the reason he did that was the port anchor would have pulled the bow off to the left, is what he was trying to accomplish. But it didn't, because when he lost all his power, most likely the rudder was stuck in the last position that was given to it, which could have been a 5 or a 10 degree right rudder change, because they didn't have any power. So that's what steered that ship into that. I'm assuming it was that because if she had come back to the left and the rudder, then he might have been able to get some movement to the port side and not hit the bridge. But it looked like the rudder was stuck maybe 5 degrees, 10 degrees with a right rudder, and she just went right into the bridge. So
How
he
long will the
was,
investigation take, and will there be a sort of after action report that, could it even come to a congressional hearing
oh
to
yeah, oh definitely.
try to ameliorate any further damage like this? I mean, what's the cost to rebuild a bridge?
I can
And
imagine.
can you imagine if the Sagamore Bridge? I mean, you've been to the Cape. Imagine if the Sagamore Bridge was down, everybody had to use the Bourne Bridge. So now you
Yeah,
have the wear and the tear on all those roads, plus the congestion. Is there after action reports, and does it go to congressional hearings? And what's your opinion as far as what will come out of this? Any safety regulations, or will commissioners' jobs have to be changed, or how are we going to start to look at the busiest ports that supply us with necessities like coffee?
oh, absolutely. I mean, in Florida, the Sunshine Bridge got hit too, and that came down, many years ago. That was a major, major accident down there. So, I mean, this isn't the first time we've had a bridge hit in the United States. I mean, there was just another bridge hit, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago, hit by a tugboat and barge, hit that. So that it happens quite frequently. You just don't hear about it because they don't report on it. But
Well,
so
we
it
have a
does
lot of
happen.
speculation on our page that, of course, people are extremely distrustful of politicians
Right.
because they're untruthful, and because truthfulness is not rewarded. Speaking up is not rewarded; it's actually retaliated against. But there's a lot of chatter on our page, and maybe you could offer an opinion. I think that the majority of people are so distrustful of elections and politicians
Right.
in the media that they truly believe that this is a potential terrorist strike due to the fact that farming equipment was involved, the movement of coal.
I can tell you because I've seen some of the stuff about explosives on the bridge and all that. That's all propaganda. That did not happen. It's definitely a marine event. It's an accident. We got to find out why. The only way it could possibly be any type of a terrorist event would be more of a sabotage on the vessel. That somebody had to do something. One of the crew would have to do something. But that's kind of hard to do, especially when you're leaving because there's people down there watching. So, you'd have to have a number of guys involved in doing something. And these were Indians from India that were on board there, and these guys are pretty professional sailors. They're all good sailors, and they're a seafaring nation. So I don't think you're going to have that. Now, if they were all on board from Yemen, I'd be really looking at it. But
That's why I asked about the crew and do these.
yeah, no, they were.
What
My understanding is they were all Indians, and one was from Sri Lanka. Is from what I heard. So, but they're a seafaring nation. They've got a lot of great sailors. Their navy is doing an excellent job right now in the Red Sea. They're good sailors. I worked with Indians. They're really, really good sailors, and as good as any Americans that I have sailed with. I would be looking at it if it was a Yemenis, a whole Yemen crew, then yeah, maybe there's a couple bad guys that are Houthis on board. Who knows? I don't know. But that's what the Coast Guard and they do. They do that the 92-hour notice, pre-notice of arrival before any vessel gets in a port, and they go through, they verify everybody that's on the ship. So if they got bad guys on board, they're going to know, and they'll come down and take them off. So I don't think that happened. But I think this is 100% a marine incident that just happened, probably because of either mechanical issues that weren't taken care of, fatigue might have been a problem, or somebody might have just turned the wrong valve sometimes. That happens too.
It's just inconceivable that, people are, like I said, and people are so distrustful of the government now that, a seemingly, quote, maritime incident, I think people would still, even after listening to you, say, I don't believe it. But I will believe you because, I trust your relationship. But
right now,
I do worry about that, seemingly because we do have cover-ups. We do have, I still question the death of former President Obama's chef who died in allegedly like 8 feet of water and he couldn't swim, and nobody's mentioned that. And we worry about these things, especially where we see energy is involved, the coal, and then you look at the political appointments. I mean, Wes Moore, he would be lucky if he was a graduate of Cape Cod Community College. The way that he spoke about this incident was superficial at best, and he immediately right out of the gate said our preliminary look says it's not terrorist. Well, you know what? It just happened. Give it a minute.
Right. Well, right now with the state of the world right now, there's what they call a lot of gray zone tactics being done, and I've seen a couple of them. I saw a video the other night of some Chinese guy talking about some Chinese towing thing that towed the vessel, and they can bring down airplanes and everything. And, that makes absolutely zero sense. That's gray zone tactics. That's them trying to get the propaganda going and get people all spun up and start the conspiracy theories. This was a marine accident. That's what it was, and if it wasn't, I would say. But
and I know you wouldn't. That's why we wanted you to come back on, because there was so much fluster and bluster about a potential terrorist attack. And of course, we don't trust the mainstream media because they are not reporting the truth. And, we respect you. We respect you as a person, your family. We know you. We know your family. We know your experience. We know that you went to Mass Maritime when Mass Maritime was a real school. We know that you're a real captain. And we respect your opinion. And obviously, so does Jesse Waters. Do you think is his hair real? I mean, Jesse.
I don't know, but I'm jealous. So,
well, what I want to know. Jesse Waters says, "What does he say at the end? I'm Jesse Waters, and this is my world," or something like that.
Yeah.
But he does world, and he makes a flat sign. So the next time you speak to him off the cuff, you tell him Daryl and Haywood, the retired state trooper and pod jock from KLRN Radio, wants to know why he doesn't say, "I'm Jesse Waters, and this is my world," and why he doesn't put a big round over his head like a round, like a globe. And why is he like, Jesse, do you think the world's flat? So if you ever get a hold of him, and I've sent him the same message on Twitter, and obviously he didn't think it was funny, but we love that they have you, that you're their go-to, because we need to have trusted people that we recognize, just like Emily Stevens said, that good-looking older gentleman who was in the maritime industry. And did I not screenshot that and send it to you? I meant to screenshot it. Is that the right screen grab or whatever? And send it to you because I was laughing so hard.
Yeah, that's funny.
That she couldn't remember your name.
Yeah.
But no, you're handsome. Tell your brother Jay. Emily Stevens thought you were handsome. What can you leave us with as far as what are we looking at in Maryland?
One of these, I think it was in Turkey last week, they had another catastrophic event with a ship where a ship a little bit bigger than that one was coming up to the dock, and they actually they took down 5 gantry cranes, which are the container cranes that you see when you go through the ports, all these big container cranes. They took down 5 of them, actually killing a person. So same thing, lost control of the vessel, hit the gantries, and took them all down. They put that whole container terminal out of business for a long, long time.
So answer this bet. We have 2 minutes. And Di, I know you're listening. And Di, if I'm right, you better call me at 10:05 and say, you were right and I was wrong. So here it is, Captain Jim.
Go ahead.
Is it the ship's fault, or is it the fault that the bridge wasn't fortified enough for the ships that are being created today?
I think it's actually both. The bridge, that bridge was built in the 70s, and at that time, the ships were half the size.
That's what I said to Diane, and she said no. They
not only length, but also the width of the vessels too. So they had a lot more area to go through with the ship being, ships back then were only about 75-foot beam. Now they're up to 150. Some of them even more than that, with the beam size on these ships. So
you do not want to cause consternation between me and my co-host. So you're not going to take a position. You're going to go right down the middle.
Well, I mean,
right down the middle.
Actually, it was the ship. It was the ship that had problems, and then the bridge wasn't built to sustain a strike like that. But back then, I never thought ships would ever get this big, ever. And that's something we need to think about. Are these ships too big? Because this one's
compatibility, right?
This one's
compatibility.
That's right. This one's 10,000 TEUs containers. And the ones they're building now are up to 24,000. Twice the size.
So what did we lose on the containers?
Oh, usually all the bad stuff's usually up front. All the hazmat and all that kind of stuff's usually up in the bow. So I don't know. They may have been empty. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I haven't seen a cargo manifest on it. So, but it's I don't know what they had in those containers.
Well, we appreciate all your insight. Thank you for your honest and thoughtful reasons that it isn't a terrorist attack. I think that will make a lot of people feel better, although now they have to think that we don't have enough of a risk mitigation. In Captain Jim, you've become a regular for us, so unfortunately we keep having these disasters, and I wish we love having you, and we hope that you'll continue to be with us. And again, we want to thank you for all your travels, for everything you do, for your investigation, the things that you do for the maritime industry. We want to recognize you for that, the time that it takes away from your family. You will be married forever. You are an Alaska. Right?
Yeah.
But God bless you. Please stay safe. We hope to speak to you soon. And I think Diane will be down here for a few weeks, so we definitely owe you a dinner wherever you would like to go.
Oh, it sounds good.
And thank you for everything you do, and God bless you, and stay safe.
You too, Daryl. Always a pleasure talking with you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Hey.